Welcome back.
Dude, I'm on my phone. I think I'm gonna have to do this from my phone. I truly don't get what's going on here. You want to get back into it?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So sorry, everyone. I'm having technical difficulties here. My power's gone out twice with Bridget. So I aborted the computer and I'm just straight up on my phone right now. Who knows what this will sound like or look like? But the wisdom that Bridget Nohara is going to drop today, I want the world to hear it. So Bridget studied communications at Franciscan University. She's an executive ghostwriter. She's also published in many publications, both on the internet and in print. Bridget, what are some of the publications that put you out there regularly?
I frequently write for the National Catholic Register and then something called Faith Catholic, which is an outreach of the Diocese of Lansing, but it's a national publication. There, I actually don't write under my own name, so you wouldn't have seen my name there.
Ooh,
I've also
a
written
pseudonym.
Yes. I write for Word on Fire occasionally and several other publications.
Welcome to Fulfillment Project. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and share this episode with a friend or text it to a random number. If you want more, subscribe to Fulfillment Project Premium on Substack, where we release additional resources to personalize this content to your life. Let's get back to it.
You're amazing. I know you've helped me on some of my work over the years and specifically on this Substack and this Fulfillment Project. And you are such a skill. When I work with you, Bridget, I realize not only how natural your ability is as a writer, but also how you've worked to hone that ability. Like, yeah, a lot of it's natural and you love it and you're passionate about it, but you've turned a hobby into a craft and a skill. And it's so amazing to see your work. And I can even now, when I read your different articles across publications, I can smell your style. It's so friendly. It's so warm. It's so personal. And you use the exact right word. I think we all know people who know how to choose the exact right vocabulary word to describe the moment so you can taste it, you can smell it. You are that person for me, Bridget. You know just the right word to choose.
Thank you, Andy. I take that as a massive compliment, and I'm particularly humbled because you said a couple things in there that have been intentional efforts of mine for a really long time. So to hear that from someone that it's coming through is a huge affirmation, and we don't always get those type of affirmations in our work. And so thank you. I will receive that humbly and just say thank you.
You're welcome. And I was going to save this for later, but let's dive in now. Intentional effort. You are so intentional. That's one reason I wanted to have you on today. And when you say you've put intentional effort into something, number one, how did you recognize you wanted to put intentional effort into something and then a specific thing? And then two, once you identify that thing, what do you do to be intentional about it? So it seems like in this case, you wanted to be intentional about word choice or clarity, maybe. And you can correct me the way I'm describing this. It seems like you decided that. How did you realize that?
So the two things that you said that stuck out to me that have been intentional efforts is one, taking what I would call and acknowledge as a God-given gift and turning it into a skill, because those two things don't have to be true. You don't have to do that with all your God-given gifts. We can have gifts and they remain crude in a sense.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things you said. And the other thing is choosing the proper word. And honestly, in my journey personally, both of those things started by things people said to me. So growing up, people always would kind of almost chuckle that I would always use the right word for the moment. Like even in college, it was a joke among my group of friends. They'd say like, Bridget, you always have that word. And
Yeah.
for me, I really do think a lot of it was a natural thing that came through life. But again, it was this natural God-given gift. Words have always been something I felt like were a gift that God gave me, knowing how to use them, feeling comfortable with them, being interested in them. And when I started receiving comments from other people, it made me realize I could get better at it. Like it didn't just have to be like I used the one right word at the right time that once. Well, what if I have the right word next time? How do I do that? I have to learn more words and understand them in their context. And so for
Yeah,
me,
instead
that
of just getting lucky from time to time, you want to be intentional and consistent with the right word placement.
exactly. And so a big part of it, and I think this is what most writers will say, is it became consuming content, whether it was books or listening to talks, and now it's evolved into podcasts and videos and that type of thing. But hearing other people use their words really well, and something that's been big for me my whole life is actually audiobooks, because you see the word in a book, but when you hear someone say it,
Mm.
you get the inflection and you get the context, at least for me, in a really rich way. And so I think how many audiobooks I've consumed has become part of what has just been this journey of growing this gift into a talent or a
So,
skill.
and I want to go to the second thing. You said that was the first. Before there, I want to pick up this little Bridget Nohara nugget, which is identifying God-given talents and turning them into, what did you say? Skills?
Skills, crafting them
Yeah.
into a skill.
So it's interesting because in my world of sales, I hear a lot of people that are thinking about getting into sales saying, I think I'd be good at sales. People always tell me I've had the gift of gab, or I'm really good with people, or I love people. And I'm like, that's an amazing gift and talent. Now you need to turn that into a skill that you can replicate and generate millions of dollars. And that's a lot different than liking to go to dinner and having a glass of wine and talking to someone. So I love the way you so concisely said that. Like, you start with something, it's a skill, a gift, whatever, and then you bridge that into something that's repeatable and effective and intentional over and over and over again. And you keep iterating to make it better. And that started for you by someone or people saying things, like people identified that in you. You heard them and you're like, okay, I want to drill down there.
Exactly. Yeah. I always think of it as like, when I believe that when we're all born, we're given gifts and talents, but a lot of the time it really is merely crude material. And I think that you'll hear people say, like, I don't really have talents, or I don't really feel like I'm good at anything. And I think what a big part of that is that they're just looking at the crude material. And
Yeah.
it doesn't look like much sometimes. Like for me, writing in a journal is not much to write home about. It's like, okay, well, sure, we can all write in a journal, but it's what you can grow it into. And I think that's true for everyone.
Bridget, I don't know where this comment is going to go. I'm so curious. I didn't mention your beloved husband and my good friend Evan in the intro because the power went out and I got confused and I skipped that part. But you and he are so active in a way that I think is really noble and praiseworthy. And you guys inspire me quite a bit to keep up with the physical aspect of my life. I love following you guys on Strava. And I'm always like, hey, if Bridget can exercise, I can exercise. You know, if Evan can get out there, I can get out there. And I love that peer pressure, that positive peer pressure. I'm curious where that stems from. Why do you focus on fitness? What does fitness mean to you in your life?
Honestly, it's hilarious hearing myself say this, because this would not have always been my answer for a large portion of my life. But fitness is one of the pillars in my life. And I find that it is so intrinsically connected with the other pillars, which I would call faith. I would say faith, fitness, and then community and work would be kind of the main pillars. And I am now realizing that if I pulled any of those out, it would just, my life would sort of crumble, in, for lack of a better term. And it's been so amazing because, like I said, I was not ever involved in sports. I was not physically active. I was not a fit individual for most of my life. And when I started dating my now husband, he was very active and very fit. He was a competitive power lifter. He had been involved in athletics his entire life. And he lovingly, but in his very particular way, told me when we started dating that this was really important to him. And he didn't force me to work out in some like body shaming way, but he said, Bridget, I know how valuable this is in my life. And if I'm looking for a spouse, which I am, I need a spouse who values this too. And I have said so many times, a lot of people will be like, wow, that's really aggressive. It was one of the best things he ever did for me because it came from a place of love. But as I have developed this relationship with fitness and activity and exercise, it informs so much of my understanding about everything else. It's taught me discipline. It's taught me how to put myself in perspective with other things. It has taught me that challenging things are good for me. The amount of times I use fitness analogies in my own brain, whether it's for spirituality, for my professional work, I really do believe that God, I don't know how spiritual we can get on this.
Very.
But
Go.
I believe that God wrote the code when he wrote the natural law on our hearts. He did it knowing we had a human body. And he teaches us so much about ourselves from our own experience with our flesh. And when you engage in exercise, you're switching on all the lights for all the different parts of your body. And it has revealed so much to me about what he wants for humanity, what I really believe his plan for human beings are. And so that has inspired my work, my relationships. As you can see, this is a big, deep topic. I could go on and on, but I'll let you break into it or pick something
Yeah.
out.
Well, I wanted to go, the next place I wanted to go is life suffering. Nobody is immune. Everyone's got their own thing. And I know in my life, I've just been physically active. I've been an athlete my whole life, but in my adult life, just for the last couple years. And it's really helped me to work through the struggles in life, going on my long runs, being in the weight room and throwing up iron and just processing my work, my relationships, my marriage, our children. Curious if that ties in to your workouts at all. Like, what are you thinking about when you're working out? Is it always the same? Is it always different? Does it vary? What's that like?
In terms of when I'm actually working out, I would say it varies and it depends on what activity I'm doing. For example, walking versus running versus lifting would be different experiences for me. But a lot of the time, what I enjoy about exercise is that I'm often not thinking about the painful things in my life or the complex situations. I'm typically thinking about the present moment. And I would say that's one of the things I love about it is that it draws me out of painful places or exhausting places or irritations, frustrations. And I just got to be right there because there's too much demanded of me there.
Whoa. Okay. I'm taking note because I typically reserve that as a time for reflection. But now I'm thinking, I mean, maybe I do use it as time of reflection, but it's also a time to just remove yourself from all that stuff and just be outside. Hear the
Mhm.
birds, look at the trees, see what's around you, smile at the person you're passing, and just exist and let the rest of life that feels cluttered just be cluttered in the background.
Exactly. Exactly. That's
I
very
love that.
often my
And
experience.
you're famous in my mind, Bridget, for walking every day. You never miss a day. You go at least 30 minutes, if I'm correct. Rain or shine, snow
Yes.
or ice, and you live up in Canada, so it gets pretty brutal out there. When did that start? Why did that start?
I all of what you said is true. Although sometimes I miss a day. It's rare, but it does happen. Although, nah, actually, maybe not really. Sometimes I go less than 30 minutes. I'll say that. I have always loved walking. That's something that I remember when I was even younger. We lived out in the country, and I remember being jealous of my friends who lived in neighborhoods and had sidewalks. And I thought, if I had these sidewalks, I would just go.
Yeah.
And so when I got married, I remember saying one of my non-negotiables is sidewalks. There's something to me, I know you can walk other places, and I have since come to love walking elsewhere, but there's something about a sidewalk that just propels you. It just invites you to go. So I would say the walking really diligently started in my marriage. COVID times were shortly after I got married. There was very little to do. So walking just made sense. And then we got a dog during COVID, and I felt a responsibility for this creature. and not be locked up in a, one bedroom, one
Totally.
bathroom apartment. I felt like, okay, he's got to get out, so I'll get out. And then it has since evolved into one of my favorite things. I look forward to it when I go to bed at night. If I do happen to miss it, I ache. And I will say that on my walks, I do some of my best thinking. So in my running and my lifting, I'm really typically zeroed in on the activity. But my walks, this is a little funny thing about me, is that I talk out loud most of the time when I walk and I keep it quiet. And if I pass people, I just say hello. But I find that I could solve all the world's problems when I'm walking. There's something about I can go into hard places when I walk, but there's, for whatever reason, a certain lightness to them if I'm moving. And so I
Yeah.
find I can tackle them in a different way.
I love that. I love that. I have a book called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And
I should read it.
you could probably have written the book, or be a ghostwriter for the book. But I love talking to myself. And there's something about thinking something and saying it out loud. It's something I like about journaling as well. Is like, there's something about having a thought, but making that thought concrete in word or in letter, it changes it somehow. And there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. Wow. I love that. You mentioned pillars a few minutes ago, and I don't know if you read the article I recently pushed out on the 5 pillars of happiness, but you literally locked into 4 of them. I said 5. I said money, health, community, values, vocation. If any of those pillars are missing, it's like, and you, I think innately, and it's not like I created something. I think there are some of these internal truths we all connect to. And so I'm dying that you said the same things I said. And I'm also dying that you said it off the top of your head. And it took me weeks to ponder that and get those out. But nevertheless, of those things, what have been your biggest struggles to date? And not only how have you coped with them, but how have you coped with coping?
For each one?
Or just one of them, the one that comes to mind.
Let me think. I mean, yeah, each one would have different struggles and different methods to approach. But I guess if I was going to try to generalize it, I would say each of those pillars, what I would say is required for maintaining them, true for life, is consistency and discipline. And so I could give specific examples for each pillar, but the general answer would be struggling with consistency or struggling with discipline under any of those categories.
Yeah.
Is there one you would like to go into?
Well, I loved, first of all, when you were talking about walking in the rain, you said you never miss a day. Maybe you do. If you do, and that's one thing about consistency that I'm trying to drill in on Fulfillment Project is consistency doesn't mean every day or whatever schedule you set out for yourself, because you're going to miss. It's going to happen. And if you feel so rigidly attached to the schedule and you miss, then you'll beat yourself up. And that's why I love your idea about walking. There's a passion behind it. You love it. You look forward to it. And even if you don't love and look forward to things, you miss a day, so what? You get back on the horse, and the consistency piece is the key. And I don't know if there can be consistency without discipline. Do you think there can?
No, I think you're right. So perhaps the answer would just be discipline.
Yeah. Yeah, the discipline. Well, yeah, but I think it's good to label consistency as well, because discipline about what? Discipline about doing the task. I can do anything once with discipline. I can wake up at 3 a.m. once and do something, but like having the discipline about consistency, and that
being
requires
consistently disciplined.
Bridget, nailed it. And I hit this on a former podcast. I'm curious your thought on this, because thinking about what to be consistent and disciplined about, consistency requires planning in my mind, because it doesn't happen by accident. You have to be I'm going to say that word you said, intentional about it. And that requires thought and reflection. And I said in a previous episode, I wonder if all successful people are reflective, because there's no way to get better if you don't reflect. What are your thoughts on that? Do you reflect? What's your method of reflecting?
Yes, Andy, I love that point. That's such a good reflection point. And I think I would have to agree with that. I'm just thinking about that because I love that point and I've never heard it articulated quite that way. But my gut reaction is that I absolutely agree. And I would say I am reflective, always want to be more reflective because I think there's always room to grow in that. I don't want to act like, oh, I'm the most self-reflective person in the world, because there's totally things that I miss about myself and that other people would probably be talking about that I don't realize I'm doing. But I do think reflection is pivotal. For me, it comes largely through my spiritual practices. And it's something I'm so grateful that the Catholic Church has given me, is this concept of morning and evening prayer, which I'm not perfectly consistent with. It's a discipline I am always working on, or trying to work on, and constantly failing in. But I love the notion of morning and evening prayer. And a lot of the time, you mentioned knowing what to be disciplined in, or knowing what that's supposed to look like. Something for me that's been my current reflection point for my morning prayer is using the visual of workers in a vineyard, which is very scriptural, whatever. And I love going to the master at the vineyard in the mornings. I do this mentally. And I say, where are we working in the vineyard today? And personally, I'm a very day-to-day, operationally functional person. I'm not as good at the big picture. That's what I have my husband for. But I love just getting my daily orders and going from there and not looking much beyond that. So in terms of trying to figure out what I'm focusing on, I seriously ask that question in the morning, like, where are we working in the vineyard today? And I go from there. And in my evening prayer, I say, how did I do it in my work? And did we accomplish what we were supposed to? Did we do it well? How could we do it better? And that's a lot of the time what my walk is just kind of reflecting on my day. I love to walk in the evening if I can, and just kind of see how it all went from there.
I love that. I love that. It's such a visual way to be reflective, where it's not just you, but it's like you and the creator, and like, hey, I'm here for a purpose. What is my purpose for this day? And so often I think people get mixed up in the grand plan, and they forget that, like, the grand plan is just the here and now in small, teeny chunks. Like, I've got to
Mm-hmm.
get through today. I'm going to interact with people today. What am I going to say to them? How am I going to represent myself, my family, my business? What objectives need to get done? What is am I feeling called to, if anything? And how
Mm-hmm.
do I see that through? And also, the people around us have needs. How do I serve them in the midst of my needs and my obligations? So I love that you focus on the day to day, because so many people want to be retired. They're in med school, but they just want to be doctors. So they miss
Mm-hmm.
the whole point of med school, just waiting for the day. Or not, they miss the point, but like, they miss living day to day because they're just so excited about the day they get to be a doctor. Or people in college or dating, they just want to be married. They can't wait for and like, they kind
Yeah.
of skip the here and now. And there's such a beauty. And that's a big thing I'm continually and consistently working on, is awareness of the moment. How do I
Yes.
wake up to this moment, the here and now, right now? I love that.
Amen. I love it.
Soaking this all up. This is so good. And I love particularly this about this interview, Bridget, is you usually are the one asking the questions and writing about it. So now the interviewer becomes the interviewee.
I know. It's pretty fun, actually. I like being on this side of things. I'm not used to it.
And you're so good. You're so good at it. I think you should do it more often.
Thank you.
Thinking
Fun.
about the article we worked on together, The Art of Staying Put, or the value of staying put. The whole context of that article was like, so many people are trying to get new jobs. They want raises. They don't like someone they work with or their boss or whatever. And they're always seeing the grass as greener on the other side. And I'm curious, revising a funny side story. I did like two or three edits before I sent it to you. And in my mind, it was polished, like ready to go out the door. And then you sent me back this Word doc that was like as long as the article was in edits. And you made it sound so much better than the original. It was just such a reminder of what a master you are at your craft, and people who truly see words and it can interweave your skill into tying a story arc together, making points, visually saying things. Anyway, that's a little side tangent. But when you were working on that article, what would you say, or what would you say to people that are looking at the next thing, trying to get out of what they're currently doing? Grass is greener, unsatisfied here. What would you say to those people?
I think you brought this up in a really natural segue of conversation, because what I liked about that article is that I almost think you could, if you wanted to, change the word to the hidden value of staying present. And I think that so much of that internal tension that is very common, and I have experienced this totally. I'm not saying this is just other people, but always looking for something better or glamorizing something from the past and feeling discontent in the moment. I think that often comes when we are not being truly present. And I don't want to discount that, of course, there's bad jobs, bad situations, bad coworkers, bad bosses. Change can be really good. But if we're really trying to evaluate what our next steps can be, I think that there's so much that we can learn from just choosing to be very present in where we are and seeking the good in that. I know it sounds trite. I know it sounds cliche, and I don't mean it in that way. I just mean it for what it is. Like, if we root ourselves in the present moment and try to really see what we have going for us, it can be a helpful discernment tool.
I was just having this conversation with someone where even if you're looking for something else, and that's okay, that could make sense for a million reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Look for something else, but find value today with where your feet are. Be grateful today. And I think something you're really good at, and a natural way to be present and aware in the moment, is gratitude. Find something you're grateful for today. Sometimes it's hard, but it helps you appreciate the here and now, especially when it's hard to find, because you really have to filter through things. But there's truly, once you start making that list, or once you do the first thing, I feel like, for me at least, it's a waterfall, because then
Yeah.
my brain switches paradigms to, I'm looking for the good things, and now I see all the good things. Like the little
Totally.
good things, the person that smiled at me, the person that waved in their car, the nice email that someone sent with a positive tone, the affirmation that came along.
Yes. Yes. And Andy, in a similar way, in terms of trying to practice that in a really practical way, we receive the external world through our senses. And so if you're feeling like, I don't even know what the heck to be grateful for, I hate this place, going through it, your senses, and trying to find things like, is there anything that I can see right now that I like? And maybe it's like the person's cubicle, they have a pretty picture hanging up, or you have a picture on your desk, or is there anything that I can smell that I like? Maybe your office building is connected to a Subway and you're into that smell, such a particular smell. But seriously,
Did you think of that? All I'm thinking of is the chicken bacon ranch
yes.
on Italian bread.
Oh, no, the garlic herb or herb cheddar or something.
Oh yeah. Oh.
So good. But anyway, sometimes it can be really helpful to use those cues. And it seems a bit like a trivial thing or childish, but it's amazing when you start doing that. You start to realize there's more that you like, even if you ultimately decide like, okay, the smell of the office is not going to be enough to keep me here. It can make you less miserable in the process of transition.
Big time. And it's a good practice for anybody including me, I try this all the time, is to notice the good things and throw out the bad things. When bad things need to be addressed, I don't want to be scared to address them, but a lot of negative things don't need to be addressed because they don't involve me or my stakeholders or my circle of influence. It just happens to be annoying. And
Yes.
I'm going to observe it, let it go, and focus on the good.
Yes. And I would also tie that back in. It's something that I am constantly learning through exercise, especially with running. I listened to a book. Well, I'm in the process of listening to a book that I know you listen to as well, Endure. And
Yes.
I also have been recently consuming podcasts by an ultra marathoner named Courtney DeWalter. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
No.
Buddy, she's going to change your life.
Really? Dean Karnassus is my ultra guy. I got to check this girl
Oh,
out.
yeah, that's right. I haven't listened to anything by him, but I should. But this girl, Courtney, she talks about that. Like, people were asking her, well, how do you do these hundreds of miles at a time? And she's like, and they say, what if this is hurting or this is going wrong? And she's like, I just kind of pretend that it's not. And I just kind of ignore it. And at a certain point, if it's serious enough, then it will come to the surface on its own.
Yeah.
And she said, when people ask you, how are you? If she's at mile 210, how are you? She's like, I always just say, I'm fine. I'm fine. She's like, I'm not going to give power to that. And that shook me because I'm the first one. If someone says, how are you? I'll say I'm fine, but I'll also be like, this hurts and this is a problem and this is annoying and I'm struggling with this. And again, it's okay to put value to that. But sometimes I think that our culture glamorizes speaking our truth a little too much, and it ends up just saying everyone gets a pass to complain.
I wonder if sometimes things like that can seem hokey and like tricks, but isn't it all kind of a trick? Like fake it till you make it is kind of a trick that kind of works most
Mm-hmm.
of the time. If you want to be perceived a certain way and you're not that way, start living that way. You want to be a runner, start running. And then all of a
Yes.
sudden you become a runner. And in a lot of areas of life, these are like age old generational life hacks that find the good, be grateful. That is like, if you do one thing in your life, that's a hack. Fake it till you make it. If you want something, start doing it. Make little steps towards that. And positive self-talk. Say good things to yourself about yourself, even if you don't believe them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to just, that's not real. That's fake. Since it's not real, it won't matter. I think it does matter. I think it does matter. There's this book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which opened my eyes to things like this. And the last part of the book I stopped reading because it got really crazy. So like people can go off the wall with, what's the word I'm looking for? Manifesting. People can go
Oh,
crazy with manifesting.
yeah.
There's a fine line here, or maybe it's not so fine. Maybe it's a bold line. But putting something on a card, for example, I will run a marathon. I did that. I wrote it down.
Yes.
And then I got a running plan. And I was not a marathoner, never done it before. And like, to me, legitimately, I very well could have failed. But I wrote it down. I thought about it every day. I told myself I was going to do it. I actually told myself I was going to do 50 miles to trick my mind into thinking 26 wasn't that far. Like at 26, I'm only halfway there.
Yeah.
And I still hurt. And I still had to put in the miles and the whole deal. But I did it. I freaking ran a marathon. And it's insane. And it just shows the power of self-belief. When something isn't true, it can become true. It can.
Yes. Evan and I talk about this a lot. Evan is my husband, if I haven't made the connection. We talk about this a lot with this whole concept of manifesting. And I just think the world has put a hokey term on it and has tried to make it a little bit woo-woo, new age. But I think it really is just having a goal and then deciding to take intentional action. Because I've had similar experiences. In fact, this is kind of a funny little thing about my life as well, is I had never dated anyone until I dated Evan. And the 4 months or so before I wrote down that I wanted to be asked on a date. And it's crazy because in so many ways, like I couldn't control that. But what it ended up doing is it put me in that mindset. Like I decided, no, I'm open. What it did is it opened me up to being asked on a date. It opened me
Yeah.
up to these positions. Very different example than running a marathon, but same theory. And again, I think the reason manifestation has gotten so much traction is because it really does follow true laws of experience and of humanity, but people just make it weird.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's a law of nature where if you think of something enough, it will become a reality.
Yeah.
And not everything, it's not magic, which is, I have to remind myself of this. You know,
Right.
I want to make $1 million a year, and I can write that down on a card, and I have, and it hasn't happened yet, you know, but like, but, but maybe, I mean, I'm
Totally.
still working towards it because it's a thing. Like, I want that. And so I'm going to keep
Yeah.
working towards that. And I love that, Bridget. I love that your example was so different than mine, but it's the same principle because people listening all have different types of goals or different.
Totally.
Some people hate the word goals. They have different dreams. They have different hopes and aspirations. And you can do that from dating to running a marathon. Think about it, reflect on it, write it down. And then sometimes I've been becoming more of a believer in the subconscious. We are
Mhm.
doing things in the subconscious a lot. So putting things there in our mind, even if we're not explicitly working about on it or thinking about it, things are happening under the radar. And so there's value there. I don't quite know how to quantify it or how to say it. And I'm feeling like it could be on the edge of hokiness, but there is value to subconscious ideas becoming real.
Absolutely. I don't think it's hokey. I don't know enough of the brain science to talk about it like an educated person, but I totally believe that.
Okay, connected to that, since you are my first female guest, I will say I've become 11 years of being married this year. I believe in female intuition. Why is that a thing? What is it?
Andy, believe in it too. And I
By the
think,
way, I trust it blindly. Like, if my wife Shannon says something and she's like, I have an intuition about this, for two reasons. Number one, 98% of the time, the intuition is right on. And the 2% of the time, it's not. Well, better to just go along and have her be wrong than have me fight her, you know? So a little
yeah, I
wisdom
think
there for
that's
the
true.
boys. But like, but what is it about intuition? Why is it real?
Well, first of all, I can't say for certain, but my intuition says that women are typically broad strokes here, but women are very observant. And like I mentioned earlier, connecting with our senses, I think women are naturally more in tune with their senses.
Yeah.
And to your point about the subconscious, again, I'm not educated on this at all, but from what I understand, we're all perceiving things all the time, like pheromones and things in the air and these really nuanced things about existence that we can't always put into a stream of thought, but we're absorbing these things.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe because women are just more in tune with the natural world, that helps us. Or maybe on a more practical level and a less abstract, it's that women care really deeply and so we listen really closely. Not that men don't listen, but we listen closely and so we gain this wisdom over time. Like I wouldn't trust every woman's intuition. I'll say that.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting thought. The character of the person may connect to the reliability of their intuition.
Right.
Yeah. So
Perhaps.
thinking about all the young ladies listening, Bridget, and we talked earlier about like people missing the dating experience because they're waiting to be married. You know, was there anything from your young dating life with Evan that if you could go back again and do things a little differently to enter into the moment more, what would you have done? And I'm thinking about talk to the girls out there that are either trying to date or are dating and they just want something in the future. How do they soak up today?
Think staying, again, it all connects in all the different categories, but I would say being radically tethered to the present moment. And I remember something that I learned, which is that God, we can only meet God in the present moment. And we can't meet him in the future yet. We can't meet him in the past. We can only meet him in the present moment. And that helped me so much in seasons. It still helps me, but especially in seasons where there is a foreseeable transition and you're just not there yet. I remember that tension and frustration of feeling like it's not just like wondering what's next, it's knowing what's next and not being there. And it's so exhausting. But when I would remind myself that I can only meet God in the present moment, that just kind of leveled every other argument of wanting to be somewhere else, because I knew that's what I wanted, was to meet God. And so that would be my advice.
Yeah, radically tethered to the present moment. I heard someone call it the gospel of the moment, because the only thing
Mm,
that's real is right now. So often our minds are in the future on things that don't exist, and likely it won't be the same as we envision it, or we're reflecting on the past and that's already gone. So it's like right here and right now is that divine moment. The only thing we have control over is the here and now. And as
yeah.
Bridget Nohara would say, get radically tethered to it. I love
Amen.
it. I
And
love
if you
it.
don't know what that looks like, just look down. It's where your feet are. It's
Whoa.
not that complicated. I think that's the other thing, is that it's really easy to complicate it. Like, what should I be doing right now? Where should I be? Who should I be with? And truly, you have that question answered. It is exactly where you are.
Oh my gosh, Bridget, I'm so happy you said that. It's insane. People get so caught up in trying to figure out what they should be doing, and what you should be doing is what you're doing. And
Yes.
and when in doubt, walk through the doors that are open and don't walk through the doors that are closed. Like
Yes.
it's very life can be very simple. And I wonder if people lose peace sometimes because they overcomplicate a simple thing, when really it's not supposed to be complicated. It's supposed to be very simple. You're supposed to be having
Yes.
coffee with your friend right now, not worrying about every boy that passes by and wondering if they're going to ask you out on a date. Like,
Yes.
just exist here.
Yes. And I think this is a whole topic that I don't know that we're necessarily going to get into, but I think something that has really complicated that for people is the internet and our phones and our computers, because suddenly I can be with millions of people all at once. And it's something I personally grapple with, because I live away from my family. I don't live in the town I grew up in. Most of my friends are out of town. All of my work is remote. So there's a dual reality that I'm always trying to find the balance between, because so often I think we are really called to be where we are physically present. And when the Lord says, love your neighbor, he means the person next door very often. And when it's, when I say be radically tethered to the present moment, I mean here in my house with the physical structures that are around me, that's where I am.
Yeah.
But then there's the complicated aspect of, we are able to connect with people, and that's a good thing. But I think it leads to a lot of confusion and internal fatigue, because you want to be present to all these people that you're not present to.
Hmm.
And it's tricky.
The simplest thing we can do, and it's so uncomfortable, is to put the phones down. It's so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. A practice we've been trying at home is at the end of the night when we're dog tired, and it's like we just get the kids down and all we want to do is drink booze and watch a Netflix show and eat food, is we just don't turn on the TV. And we just sit on our seats. I've got my spot in the living room and my wife's got hers. And we just look at each other. And sometimes it takes a minute to get booted up, but then we start talking about the day, and then we start talking
Yeah.
about the things that are on our minds and on our hearts. And then we naturally logistics come up, and maybe we have the energy to talk about it or not. But putting the screen away facilitates those moments. There can be, and I'm speaking to myself here, don't be afraid of the awkwardness. The transition awkwardness is real. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that goes away yet. I still feel it. I'm wondering with more practice if it will go away. But like sometimes you just have to embrace the awkwardness to get to the fruit. The awkwardness
Yeah.
is like the long walk down a path to the destination you're going to, and you can't get to the destination unless you walk down the path.
Yes. Amen. And it also is making me think, do you know anything about what Andrew Laubacher is doing?
No.
Oh my gosh. He is in charge of this organization called Humanality, and their whole thing is helping college students specifically become unaddicted to their phones, but it's also for, of course, the broader landscape, but it's about getting them reconnected with the human experience, the authentic human experience, and all the different things they're doing. So cool. Like they have this whole toolkit for helping people do this, and then they're coming out on the other side fully alive, and it is beautiful.
I love the idea of being alive. I mean, I want it. I think it's what everyone wants. And that's kind of what is so attractive about social media and all these shows is I watch The Parisian Agency on Netflix and I get to live someone else's life. When I'm on
Yes.
social media, which I haven't been proudly for 6 years, I get to live someone else's life. And it's like, and then that leads to the natural depression and anxiety that comes because you turn the phone off and you realize you're in your sweatpants, your hair is undone, your gut is sticking out, and you're not living like you're not living that life.
And you're not in Paris, bro.
Yeah, I ain't embarrassed. So man, I love that humanality. I want to check that out and I want to try and bring him on the show. Thanks for dropping that.
Yeah, I think he'd be so good. He talks a lot about fulfillment, and he's got some really powerful ideas and a lot of education on the topic too.
Yeah, and that's like the demographic that can benefit the most because they have the longest runway to see fulfillment. Like investing, you start early and compounding interest adds up. And the earlier you start, the more it compounds. Same with all this stuff. It's like these life principles you mentioned, Bridget. A lot of these things are just natural truths in life. And like compounding, yeah, it happens to be well known for money, but it's also with good habits. Any good habit compounds
Yes.
over time. You don't get the same fruit from a good habit year in and year out. You actually get more fruit the more you do it.
Yes.
I'm thinking about our conversation and with your working out. It's like you're seeing more fruit now incrementally because you've been working out for so long that like in the first month or year you didn't appreciate. And now you're able to do things that are incomprehensible for the Bridget from 10 years ago.
Absolutely. It
Amazing.
is
All right, Bridget,
powerful.
we're in this thing. I'm just so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for your friendship, for coming on the show. I want to give you the last word to wrap up the episode today. Anything you want to share with our listeners, any projects you have going on, you want to draw our attention to anything?
But I would say the things I'm most proud of are a lot of my articles for the Register, the National Catholic Register. So if you Google my name with their publication, you'll find that. And I do a lot of spiritual reflection. That's where I'm happiest with my writing. And in terms of little things to leave everyone with, I would say be radically tethered to the present moment. And if you don't know how to do that, again, just look around. If you are a Catholic, ask the Holy Spirit. I find that prayer, "Come Holy Spirit," draws me right to my feet. And it works every time.
I love it. People, if you use Google, set a notification for Bridget Nohara so you get notified when Google scrapes her name when she releases new stuff. I get a lot of fruit out of it. I love it, Bridget. I can't wait to track you over your lifetime and see what you do, girl. Keep kicking it and have a great day. Thanks so much for joining Fulfillment Project.
Thank you, Andy. This was a blast. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to Fulfillment Project. If you got something out of this episode, please share it with a friend or 100 friends. You can subscribe to Fulfillment Project on Substack, Spotify, YouTube, and Apple. Please rate us 5 stars and leave a comment. See you all next time.